In November of last year, we also awarded the Entrepreneur of the Year. And with real pleasure, and I've got to know Mike quite well really over the last few months as a result of that, an absolutely amazing guy who will come up to stage in just a second. But he told me on Tuesday night when we did another gig, not as big as this, up in North East Business Week, he told me it was the first time he had ever spoken publicly. Not only had it the first time he'd ever told a story publicly, but it was the first time he'd ever spoken publicly. So I want you to be generous with him. I think you need to understand he's probably a bit nervous about it. But if I say by the end of his first speaking gig, he was like Jeremy Kyle, wandering around with a microphone with his hand on his shoulder going, "So, do you think he did it?" And it was like, and so to the very modest but hugely interesting Mike Loggie, could you welcome him to the stage? Mike. Mike, how are you? Are we going to do the standing up, sit down? What do we do? So we have a seat to start with.
Yeah,
I suspect you'll probably start wandering around.
Do I get to fly the thing?
No, you can't. Hopefully we're not going to take off. But so when we first met, I sort of knew your oil and gas story. And I was thinking, this is an oil man, this is a guy, and I've seen the movies, and I've seen that, you've got Bob here and all these oil guys. But it didn't really start like that, did it? So tell me, where it is. You're there in the RAF, right at the very beginning. Just, how did it start?
Right back as far as I can remember, I wanted to be in business of my own. And I just didn't know what to do. I don't know whether I was expecting something to flash up in front of me, a eureka moment or aha or whatever. But I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea what I could do. So I joined the Air Force when I was 17. And all the time through there, I still had this idea. And during my time in the Air Force, I went and did various things outside the job I was doing. And we built a golf course in the station. I ran an all-ranks club, various things. And just before I was coming out of the Air Force, I was called up to see the station commander. And this was in Singapore. And I had no idea what this was for, but I thought, what have I done now? So anyway, he says, now look, we really quite like what you've done. Well, okay, it's a first for everything. And he said, how would you like a flying commission? And I thought, what? So I was kind of stunned. But I thought, fabulous, unbelievable. That's what I'm there for, to do, to fly. But there's never, ever, ever gone through my head previously about flying. Within days, I was at Biggin Hill going through officer aircrew selection. And then as I finished that, I came out of there, 6 of us came out, and I was the one that was selected. And I went straight to Henlow to 237 OMC, Officer Main Course. And I went through that. And then things started happening. For example, they said, now, look, you've got to sign on now for another 16 years or till you're 38. And I thought, that's not part of the plan. And I still had this burning idea. I want to do something on my own. Again, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I hadn't the foggiest idea. So I turned around to my flight commander, a guy called Max Keats, lovely guy, New Zealander, still a flight lieutenant. He was 38, going to retire. And I said, look, I'm not going to do this. I said, I'm off. I want to go into business on my own. I've got no money. I'm out of here. I'm going to wait to find a job to make enough money to start on my own. And he looked at me as if I'd lost the plot, or I was on drugs or drink or something.
Were you?
No, not really. I probably on the drink after that. But
Yeah.
And everybody, all my friends, my family, everybody I knew thought, how stupid can anyone really get? And I thought that myself for a long, long time. Because I went from there to try and...
I need to stop you there, just for a wee second. So, 2 big points. One is, so there you are. And again, I've got this image of Tom Cruise in this sort of thing. I can imagine you're a handsome man now, but I can imagine you're very dashing back then. You had the opportunity to do the Top Gun thing, and all these people who went through it, and I think you're one of 100 or something who got selected to do it, and you walked away from it to go the other way. And this is a theme I think we'll see again and again. It's when everybody's piling that way, you go the opposite way. And I think it applies particularly with your view about where we are with oil and gas at the moment. As I say, we'll come back to that. So I want to mark that. But we have to talk about the nurses. Because
the nurses, yes.
The bottom line is that he talks about this all ranks club and the, being called in by your superior to say, I think you've done a great job. The great job you did was actually you created nightclubs and parties for officers to meet nurses, and everybody loved you as a result. Is that true?
More or less, actually. I was in Singapore when the armed forces were getting dragged back and out of there. So Saltire, which was an enormous station, it was huge, and a bus service going around it. It had a yacht club, it had a golf course, everything you could imagine.
Other than girls?
No girls, because at the cutback, the first people who went with the WRAF, the nurses, etc., they all went. But we had a yacht club. So I thought, right, we've got this all-ranks club, and all guys, how boring can you get? So I thought, right, just along the water there is Changi Creek. So I've gone along towards the causeway. I thought, right, I'll get the launch from the yacht club, and I got them to take it along there, put some drinks on there, along to the naval base, and organised for the nurses there to join us. So they came back on the yacht, on the yacht club boat. So then we started building this up, and before I knew it, we had an all-ranks club going with girls in it, and they used to come along with dances and all sorts of things. And it actually built up because it was a station that was running down, so that the atmosphere was poor. People were just dying to get sent home, But we built it up, and nobody wanted to go home. It got better and better.
So, and again, hospitality and that side of things, you did go on and own nightclubs and all that sort of stuff as well. But so there we are. You've got 95% would have taken that commission with the RAF. You went the other way, and again, you didn't take the easy option. What did you do next?
I was a bit restricted what I could do. I really couldn't do very much. So I looked for jobs. I had to get out of the country and make some money tax-free because, I worked forever otherwise. And so anyway, I got a chance to go to the Middle East and work for IDC, International Drilling Contractors, as a roughneck. So I went out there for 18 months and I got promoted very quickly. They stuck me up a derrick, 90 feet up a derrick. So I became a derrickman and I was throwing pipes into elevators. And I worked away there for 18 months. And during that time, I helped in moving rigs and all sorts. Then they offered me a job with the team who actually started moving the rigs around the world. And these guys were really classy. They had all the right tailored gear. This was classy, and drove the right cars, everything. I thought, no, don't get sidetracked, So I stuck with it, and I finished, and I came back. I don't remember, it was £4,000 I came back with, or £5,000, but that was it. That was my lot. And I came back determined to start my own business. And even then, after all that time, I still hadn't a clue what I wanted to do, what I could do. So I worked away for a bit, and then I thought, I haven't got enough money to actually get a business going and give credit. So I need a cash business. So what's a cash business? Right. A pub, a fish and chip shop, a corner shop. I'm sure there's many more, but anyway, that's where I stuck. I thought, don't know much about fish and chips, don't know much about shops. I know about pubs, but all from the other side of the bar. So I thought about it. I went to see one of the brewers. I said, look, publican, I don't play guitar, I don't sing, I don't tell funny stories, other things. They said, not married, you'll be a singular success. And I thought, right. So away I went looking for pubs. And it's not as easy as you think, you get some right horrible things out there. So finally I did find one, and I bought the Plough in at Keith. And the people who were in it were so keen to get out of it. The guy was an ex-prison warder, and his wife was a hospital mate. They're lovely people, but they were desperate to get out of it. So they let me in the middle of December, which was great. So I was off and running. But very quick I realised, it was a small place, and so I was getting up in the morning, and I was cleaning the pub and lighting the fire. Then I was making the snacks, and then I was serving behind the bar all day, and then I was throwing the drunks out, and I was going to bed, and I was doing the same thing every day. And all I was doing was working all hours of the day and night and making 3 and 4 pence. So I wasn't going far there. So I thought, I guess that, this is just a job, this is nothing else. So I thought, right, I've got to start taking some risks here. And within 6 months, I'd made the previous guy's whole year turnover. So I went off and spoke to this.
Just in that sort of moment, because I think, again, this is the theme we see again and again with you, is you need a I mean, you made some quite interesting marketing decisions. So you were there, and rather than treating it like running a pub, and you're getting into that sort of lockdown position that so many publicans end up with, you started things like the Blue Poet and things like that. And also tell that story about the.
Okay. It was a lovely community in Keith, and they did kind of take to me, which was lovely. And so anyway, the local paper came out once a week, so I got a bit in there, a little thing I called the Blue Poet. So and I put stupid things in there, and people started following this nonsense I was putting in there, and people talked about it. So this time I thought, right. And there's this guy who worked for me at the weekends, and he was the manager of the local butcher shop. Dennis, he was a great guy. So anyway, I put this thing in the Blue Poet this week, and I said, topless service at the Blue tonight. And the place was mobbed. And they came in, and there was Dennis in his trousers and a pair of braces and no shirt on. And I carried on doing stupid things like that. And we did great. And I went from having 2 nights entertainment to 4 nights entertainment. And I said, by the end of the 6 months, I found another place about 10 miles away up in Dufton, which wasn't going well. And I'd gone back to my friendly bank manager, told him how I was getting on. He quite liked it. And he helped me there by the next place. We're talking about, the first place, I think, cost me about £22,000. And I think by far the majority was from the bank. I think I had about £4,000 of it, so they were pretty good. And this is back in the days when bank managers could make decisions. So this guy followed me, and I went up to Dufton. But when I left Dennis at the plough, I said to him, look, would you like to run the plough for me? So I'll tell you what I'll do. If you run the plough for me for 5 years, and you increase the turnover year on year, and you get the same margins I've done, in 5 years, I'll put up the money for you to buy it from me. Okay? I thought, where am I going to get all this money in 5 years' time? But I thought I've got 5 years to worry about that, so that's what I did. I went up to Dufton, bought this pub, this hotel, which was really run down, and did a bit of work on it, got a function suite going, got in with the local people, took on some stuff in the village hall, started doing weddings and things like this. I bought myself an old Mini Countryman, and it was so old at the starter on the floor. And I used to use this for taking the soup and the food backwards and forwards to village halls for doing weddings. And after I finished, I used to take the spare wheel out and hose it out, and that was the soup out. So cleaned out. So after 6 months, I got the chap who was the steward of the British Legion there, the assistant steward of the British Legion. And always pretty good British Legion if they're a steward and assistant steward. But I gave him the same deal. And I said, right, 5 years' time. So he took that over, and I went into Aberdeen and started in various things. Started up building consultancy, started up graphic design. I looked around and I thought, people's cards were kind of scripted cards and things like this. There was nothing exciting about it. I said, come on, let's get a bit more adventurous and get logos on there and get things, logos are all the babies.
And you also owned a betting shop?
Yeah, well.
And you owned, what else? What other businesses did you own? And this is all before you sort of start dabbling in oil and gas. I'm going to bring us to oil and gas
a little bit later.
But so I think the pathway that we're seeing here is one where you've started, you built up your capital, you've gone again, but what you've done is got others around you, so it's not this you doing it all the time. So when you put Dennis in, and you repeated that again and again. I'm conscious just a bit of time, so I want us to fast forward to Aberdeen and to oil and gas just now. And I think there's two angles, and again I think there's some amazing stories in there as well, is that your perspective of where Aberdeen is at, or maybe the oil market is at, is quite different to ones I've heard elsewhere. Do you know, what's your view on where we are with oil and gas at the moment?
I think there's two issues in oil and gas. One is the oil price, which is a bit smoke and mirrors, and we've got no real control over. But the other one is the fact that anyone who's involved in oil knows it really got totally out of control. The lift price, i.e. the price of producing, sucking the stuff out of the ground, went up to $100 a barrel. This is absolute lunacy. That's just total mismanagement of the whole industry. I sometimes think that oil must come out of the ground on its own because, the way we do it, we kind of no real involvement. There's nothing business-like. If that had been a sweet shop, it would got out of business. But the oil industry carried on. And it was only the crash in the oil price that got people to thinking, God, we've got a problem here. It takes us $100 to get the stuff out the ground, and we're getting $40 for it, so we've got a problem. Now, about 70,000 people in the North Sea have lost their jobs, and they've got nothing to do with this whatsoever. This is just total mismanagement. And operators, drilling contractors, major service companies have now got the costs right down. They've got them down, and they're getting down to sort of sub $40 a barrel. This needs the bust time for people to start thinking about the future and organising their businesses so they actually are competitive. I mean, Alec Kemp will tell you all about this in his economic rent. You know, this was windfall profits they were giving away. But the industry's got this act together now, or it's very close to getting its act together. And with a lot of people losing their jobs and a lot of cost cutting, we're now able to produce oil at $40 a barrel, and oil is a little over $40 a barrel. I think we should have done this a long time ago, but if the oil price hadn't crashed, I think there could have been a much, much worse fate for the oil industry. Imagine we'd carried on at $100 a barrel and they'd found out they were making a gross loss. I mean, is it possible? Yeah. Well, you know, they could have done. But I think we've got the thing on even keel now. Demand's growing because of the lower price. Supply is dropping off mainly in the States. So I think by the end of this year we're going to find a balance, you know, and supply and demand will balance. After that, it's going to peak the other way, and then suddenly expectations will change. Oh, we haven't got enough oil. End of oil. Oil's got to collapse. And we'll start working like fury, and we'll replace all the reserves we've been producing. I think that oil industry very soon is going to pick up, and we're going to go flat out again. And this will be a distant memory. So, I mean, and you're dead right to talk about those job losses in Aberdeen, and obviously it's not their fault. You very much look at it now as this is a massive opportunity. Huge. And I think there's two ways I've seen you use that opportunity. One is around preparing for that uptick, and also recognising, I mean, when you started, like I'm sure everybody, you know, your customers were coming to you saying, you know, you're going to have to squeeze your margins, etc. How did you respond to that? I was approached by everyone. I mean, I was dragged across the head office of a big service company in Paris, and they said, right, we need this reduction, that reduction. And I said, okay. And they were kind of taken aback. And I said, however, I want all your business. Everything. I said, if I can do it, I want it. So I think they were shocked a bit. And they agreed. And I've done that right across the board. And I've pushed for everything possible. Although my numbers are down, my business is up. I'm putting out more oil tools now. I'm buying more oil tools than I ever had. Okay, at a much lower margin. But these margins will come back. I mean, one of the deals I did with one of the companies was I gave them a discount only for 1 year, and it will be reviewed after a year. And it's far enough down the line that there will be an upturn by then, so that'll go. So I've certainly, my market share has grown enormously over the past 18 months. Do you mind sharing because some of your stats, your market share stats are quite phenomenal. So I don't know, the Middle East or whatever. In the Middle East, we started in the Middle East 2012 on the BHA. This is the bottom hole assembly. This is the stuff that follows the drilling motors, all the classic stuff. A lot of it's non-magnetic, it's Monel, it's made of, etc. Very expensive stuff. But we had none of the market whatsoever. And we've gone in there and just battered it away at that market. And we now have, I would say, about 95% of the market. There's virtually nobody there. And we've increased our range of products. We've now gone into drilling jars, shock subs. We've gone into roller reamers, things like that. We've increased the scope of our work, etc. Looking now, I've always worked really two men and a dog kind of thing. I've never been, you know, lots and lots of staff. But now I'm looking at possibly the manpower side, and very much to follow up what I'm doing as far as my tools are concerned. And that's something I wouldn't have thought about before, because I was shying away from that. But there's just a huge market there, and I've just gone after everything in sight, and I haven't taken no for an answer. It's fantastic, and I think, again, a great lesson. What I'm thinking is maybe, David, if we could take just maybe a couple of questions from the floor from Mike, and then we'll get Amy and Julie back up as well. So we'll get the bing bong going.
Don't know if the bing bong's coming back. I think the batteries have run out in that. Some folk might be delighted to hear that. Anyway, again, folks, if you've got a question, if you could put your hand up, thank you, sir. Give us your name, the company you're from, and your question.
Hi, it's Richard Gill from iProspect. I've got a question. You mentioned a couple of times that when you were younger, you didn't really know what business you wanted to be in. I imagine there's a lot of people who maybe feel like an entrepreneurial spirit but don't quite know what they want to do. So what advice would you give to someone who's perhaps sitting here or somewhere else who is thinking, I want to be an entrepreneur but I don't know what to get into? What advice would you give to them?
Once you've done a few things, you realise these are just opportunities, and you've just got to keep on looking for opportunities. They're all around us. We just can't see them. And I think that's the problem everybody's got. Unless you're a joiner and you want to go in a joiner's business or a bricklayer or something like that, you don't know. You can't know. And you just got to keep on going, and eventually you will find it. It's not going to be a eureka moment. If it is, you're enormously lucky. I never had any eureka moments.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Oh, the one and only there, right, okay. Down the front, thank you. Again, see if your name, your company in question.
Hi Mike, I'm Kim McAllister from Scottish Entrepreneur magazine. You're a big supporter of lots of companies in Aberdeen. How important has that been for your company?
Companies, you say?
Yeah, like the football team and organisations and things like that.
Take it in a broader sense than that. A lot of things that I do are geared towards kids, and you'll empathise with this, girls. You know, wouldn't it be wonderful? You see all these things in the press and the news and everything, and it's always kids who are getting destroyed by, you know, problems, you know, drownings coming across the Mediterranean and things like that. Wouldn't it be wonderful if every child in the world was born with the same opportunity or with opportunities? Now, we know we can't do this. You can't have, you know, international rescue going in with Thunderbirds and fixing all these problems. But there's problems all around us, and we could all fix them. If you've got the ability to go and do something about it, go and do it, you know, and that's how I feel. And I tend to focus entirely on kids because kids are harmless. They haven't a bad thought in their head, and the only bad thoughts they've got are created by us, adults, because they're totally innocent. So if we're going to try and help them, we're going to create a better life for them, a better life for the people around them, and a better life for everybody in the future, and a better world.
Mike, you well said. I want you to maybe build on that a wee bit, because one of the things that I've heard you talk about is that for you, the way you are, the values you have, whether it was back in the day, you know, organising your nurses' meetups in Singapore, or back to the Plu doing topless stuff, and not you, obviously Dennis did all the topless stuff, to what you're doing with Saltire and what you're doing with your philanthropic side, is you've always taken yourself to it. And that sort of entrepreneurial mindset is something that applies, I heard you say that it applies everywhere. Could you talk a bit more about that entrepreneurial mindset and how it can be a force for good in business and everywhere? Do you want to touch on that?
I mean, we're here talking about entrepreneurial. I mean, when I started in business, it was starting a business. And it's easy to measure entrepreneurial success in business. It's called money. But what about all the, I mean, there's people out there who are teachers and go and do something at night. There's people who go and help with young kids or help in society all over the place. This is entrepreneurial. If you can change it and make it better, the best you can do it, never mind what anybody else is doing, do it the best you can do it. And work hard at it, make value for other people. I think value for them in their life and things like that, that's important. That's entrepreneurial in my mind. It's making things better, and it doesn't have to be money. It can be anything. It can be, you know, running a kids club or anything. That's to my mind exactly the same, and it doesn't have to be monetary. It's valuing people's lives, and that's even more important. Yeah.